Hi everybody, welcome back to more of the amazing interviews with amazing people that we've been doing for our Independent Thinking Online Children's Book Festival, brought to you in partnership with Sue Atkins, who we spoke to earlier, and her bookshop, her book club. We also have a bookshop, the Roving Bookshop. They've got a whole website dedicated to this festival, where you can get the books, and some of them you can get them signed, dedicated, and all of that sort of stuff. All the website links will be on the webpage, and we'll perhaps put it up under here as well. It's been such a privilege. I've been recording various interviews over the course of the week, and then these live sessions this weekend. It's been such a privilege to have an insight into so many wonderful writers and just wonderful people with their wonderful books. And it's books for children, books about children, books for parents, books about parents, all with relevance for teachers and for schools and for anybody working with children as well. And it's opened my eyes to so many things. And also there are certain books that are close to my heart because of my own challenges as a parent, bringing children up with various issues, and this is one of the various issues that has vexed me over the last, where are we now, Olivia, how old are you? 25 years. Which is why this book sort of meant a lot to me, and I love it. And I'm really pleased to be talking about this book, Mission Dyslexia, to well, at least two of the people whose names on the cover, which is Julie McNeill and Paul McNeill, who are here now. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for writing that book. I've already sent pictures of that to my daughter in Australia, and she's going, yeah, that's me. I'm like that. So we'll unpick that a little bit later. But welcome, and just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you've been doing, and what led you to writing that book.
Yeah, well, I'll let Paul maybe talk about the story of the book, but I'm Julie McNeill, and I am the wife of a dyslexic person, and I have two dyslexic children at home. So really for me, when I was going through that process of the children, well, my eldest being assessed for dyslexia, I was really looking for a resource that would help me kind of unlock it for, really unlock these kind of conversations with him. And I couldn't find the thing that I needed at that point in time. I really wanted to educate myself about the way that his brain worked and how he learned, and try and bring out his strengths. And there really wasn't the resource that I was looking for. So they say, if you can't find it, you should write it. So that's kind of what we decided to do. But Paul, maybe tell you a bit more the background of the story.
Yeah, Ian, probably just capitalising on a little bit of that intro from yourself there, which is probably there. I went to school in the 70s, and it was horrendous. I cried every day at school. My mum cried every day. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. I was just told I was a problem child. You amount to nothing, all of that. And it's horrible. And that should never happen to children. So kind of growing up and just kind of then finding out you were dyslexic, and there is something there that if you're supported correctly, you'll go on and listening. And Julie's a fantastic writer and reads lots of books. And I love books, but I've got a difficulty. And that difficulty should not slow me down, should not slow any children down, should not slow any family down. So I kind of morphed my way through, eventually went back to university, got the right support, but through that, and a number of years ago decided, or was asked to be an ambassador for Dyslexia Scotland, which I'm an honour to be. But I would go into numerous schools, do workshops, work with people, and I would just find parents crying, and it just hurt me. I'd get back in the car and I'd bust out crying and going, this is horrendous. We're in the 2000s. We need to do better. So and then at the same time, Julie and I had two children, and our two children have went through difficulties. That's the best way I can describe it. There would be other words I would like to use, but difficulties would be the thing in terms of our education system. And we don't do enough for anybody who has a learning disability. We do not do enough. There are still massive stigmas, still massive myths. So a number of years ago with Rossi, we decided to do a number of workshops where we passionately try and make a difference. And I was just moved by what we managed to achieve. And about 18 months ago now, maybe 2 years, we were asked, could we take this resource and try and make it into a book? And our massive thing to do with this, and Julie will describe it really well, was could we make a difference to families? Because we were finding that families found it so difficult to read with their children. And mums and dads were then going, I can't break down these barriers. I can't get a conversation going. And we knew if we could passionately do that, we can make a difference to families, to society, but also then try and challenge it. So that is the background of how we go at it. It's something that's really close to our hearts. We're very passionate about it, but what we really want to do is make a difference to society. So Joe will give you a wee bit of flavour about what the actual book inside those pages are.
Well, yeah, let me just I'll interrupt you because I just that's so powerful. And just by reading the introduction to the book, it's like, you know, here are the three people involved in it, and I'm dyslexic, and he's dyslexic, and my children are dyslexic, and then you've got a book. So right from the outset, it's saying it's just the way you are. You can overcome it. You can still write a book. You can do what you do. You talked about the workshops that you did, which sort of was the starting point for the book. Who were they with? What were they for? What did that entail?
So the book is the hybrid of the workshops. So when we through Dyslexia Scotland and part with Scottish Government, we went into workshops to create which is called Mission Superhero. They're online. If you go on the Scottish Government page or addressing Dyslexia Scotland, you will find them. And the idea was we would go in and we would work with children. And the parts in the book is what that was about. It was breaking down the myths. It was creating superheroes. But what it was embracing that power of dyslexia. So what we would go and say to children is, you can be anything you want to be. And when we put up people like Prince Harry, or we put up Jamie Oliver, and people go, they can't be dyslexic. Well, why can't they be? Oh, because they are famous and they're rich and they do really well. No, you are. If we help you and we provide that. So the workshops were all about making a difference and going into classes and working it through. So that was the idea, and there's a book there, if you can see that, the amazing people.
Yeah.
And then there's like a follow-up over there, I think. Just
yeah, well, Ross is in that book, the amazing one as well, the other person that read the book. He's in that book.
There we go.
So Rossi and I toured the country for about 2 years, delivering these workshops in a variety of schools. And what I'll say is that wasn't even part-time, it was part of voluntary work we just did with Dyslexia Scotland. And we did a parents workshop, and I think after a number of parents ones, I would say to Joey, we need to do something. We need to help parents out, because I'm still leaving with parents in tears, only giving them a little bit. So the whole concept then was, look, if we can give them something and actually give them a tangible thing in their hands that they can use with their children, we'll make a difference. And it may be a small difference, but sometimes that kind of small footprint going forward will just morph. And you know something, I genuinely believe we've made some children feel better about themselves. And that's in life, that's all you want to do. That's all we want to do.
Yeah. No, it would. There's so much in the book that will improve children's lives and make them feel better about themselves. There's so much, let alone just one little thing. Let's just go back to basics very quickly, because I have had arguments with people on Twitter over the years who are dismissive of actually dyslexia, and family members who are, well, she hasn't learned her spelling. Who are dismissive of the whole concept of it. So just briefly, sort of what is it, and how does it appear? How does it happen?
Well, I think the thing about, my own education in terms of dyslexia is that it's this spectrum. So that people think that dyslexia is, that you can't read, or that you have trouble writing, or, and really the education journey that I've been on, from having 3 very different dyslexic people in my household, and also I work in a high school with children with dyslexia every day, is that it's this continuum. So actually it can present itself in lots of different ways. Yes, commonly it's a difficulty with maybe reading, writing or spelling, but there can also be loads of other things that come with that. And we have a son who's fantastic at reading and writing, but he has a difficulty with how he processes information.
Or can't sit still, like the guy next.
Yes, absolutely. He certainly can't sit for longer than about 5 minutes at a time, and he can't follow more than 2 instructions at one time either. But whereas my daughter is fantastic, her processing speed is completely normal and usual, but she can't sound out words. She can't. Phonics is an absolute nightmare for her. So it's a continuum of things, really. But there's also, as we'll probably talk about in a little bit, there's these huge strengths that come with having a brain that thinks a wee bit differently from everybody else. So
okay, all right, I like that. And the strengths, and that's what comes through very strongly right from the outset in the book. It's about the superpower. Dyslexia is the superpower. It can define you in a good way or a negative way, and it's down to you how you do that. My daughter wrote a piece which Nina Jackson used in her Sherbet Lemon's book about 10 reasons why I love being dyslexic. It took a while to get to that point, 10 Reasons Why My Dyslexia is actually the best thing that's happened to me.
Yeah.
So
my son certainly feels like that.
Yeah,
he does.
absolutely.
He's really a very, very proud dyslexic person.
Yeah.
But
she's needed. I remember saying to teachers over the years, her education, primary especially, primary more so than secondary, where she could sort of disappear a little bit more, was the battle for her self-esteem.
Yes.
Because of the dyslexia. So,
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that's what you've seen as well, which sort of leads us into this then. So to give us tell us what the setup of the book is and who these.
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, the important thing for us was we didn't want another book that just kind of described dyslexia, because it's very different for each child and each family. So my daughter was very, very specific about the fact it had to be colourful. She won't pick up any books that don't have colour or, are not appealing to look at. So right from the outset, we wanted these characters and colour to kind of jump off the page. And then what we did in conjunction with, so when Paul and Rossi were out in the workshops with children, they developed these brilliant characters which kind of bring out dyslexic strengths. And the first one is Creatia. So lots of dyslexic people are brilliantly creative. So she uses her creative powers to kind of overcome difficulties. And then we had Persisto, which is actually just Paul in the character, really. He's just like determined and just keeps going and, doesn't let anybody get him down. And then there's Wilforce, who's my favourite, who is the kind of voice that tells you, well, listen, you've done that before, you'll be able to do it again. It kind of helps with the self-esteem things that you were just talking about there, which actually is the biggest thing, I think, for dyslexic children in the school system. It's making sure they can get through the school system with their self-esteem intact, I think, a lot of the time. So the book is centered around these three characters. And then we look at things like time, words, all the different things that might be challenging for children. And we look at using the strengths that these characters have, because these are the strengths that our children will have if they're dyslexic. And then throughout the book, Rossi, who's a fantastic illustrator, has developed these little kind of cartoon strips and comic strips to describe scenarios for children, and then they can develop their own kind of superheroes as a result of that. So it's like, okay, this is a challenge that you might face. What is it about you that makes you special? And how can you use those strengths to overcome that challenge? So the book is centered around those strengths, really, that dyslexic children have and that we all have, do you know what I mean, in our lives. So.
And you gave the villain. I mean, my daughter always used to complain, how come you give dyslexic a problem that is such a difficult thing to spell?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was the point in that. I'm pleased you picked up on that, because the villain is the dastardly Mr. Despicabilia, which is Paul you can't say that word. He just calls it Mr. D. But that's the point, because dyslexia is one of the most difficult words to spell and say, isn't it? Yeah. But he embodies all the really, the sneaky things about dyslexia. He kind of steals your time and he switches words around and all these kind of things. So we can boo him.
I spent my life for the first few workshops calling it Persisto. And then of course Rossi was going, that's not the way you say these words, Paul. And I was going, I thought I was saying them right. So he goes, no. So of course I then have to kind of go, and it's actually really good, because children go, well, he's got it wrong and he seems to be all right, and it's fine. And so,
and he's all right, he's fine.
And he's all right, and he's doing fine. So no, it was really good.
We have, again, when I talk to teachers, I talk about the tyranny of syntax, that everything has to be written and everything has to be processed through language, through words, and the words have to be correct and in the right order. And it just then becomes more obstacles for people to really unleash their creativity, like you say, and what they're capable of. And I like the fact that you're the superhero in blue, what's he called again? The
Sisto, yes.
Yeah.
Talks about visual processing and how important, how great the visual memories are, and just little sort of visual thinking is of children with dyslexia, and just things like the color coding the clock. That's that little tip, because it's such a simple one, really.
I mean, most of these things have come from children. They've come from either workshops that Paul and Rossi have delivered or from our own children. A lot of the examples are things that kind of blew my mind when I was talking to my own children. They were like, oh no, but do you not see it like this, Mum? And I'm like, no.
So the clock one's got a fantastic story behind it. We did a workshop, and we always get, so at the end, everybody has to come up and present, and there has never been a child who's not come up and presented and said, there's my character, I'm so proud of it, here's what they do. And this girl came up and she had designed how you could stop time. And she presented it so well with the comic book character, and it was just lovely. And then at the end of it, she said, I can stop time. And of course, we've got a 9-year-old in front of us, and we're all looking at each other. The teacher's looking at me, I'm looking at Rossi, going, how are we going to tell this girl she can't stop time? And we're thinking, there's a moment here we're going to have to. And she says, no, I can. And we said, right. I said, right, okay, how can you stop time? And she went, see, every time we do an exam, I put my stopwatch on. And see, when I'm struggling, I stop my stopwatch. But the big clock on there still goes, and I can calm myself down, and I have stopped time. And honestly, I burst out crying with just massive happy tears. And the teacher went like to her, how long have you been doing that? Since P2, miss. And she said, you stay behind today because we are going to work out a better strategy for you, because that is phenomenal. So if you think about how amazing children are, and all we did and all we have done is tapped into that creativity, don't squash it, embrace it, because if we want to change society, we can make children and society better, because young people who are dyslexic might have the greatest idea in the world, but if you tell them they're rubbish and you just constantly say, going to climb up that tree and they can't do it, then you're just not doing your job correctly. So I think that was our whole embrace. And so that was where everything in the book has come from. It came from feedback from children, from parents, from anybody we bumped into. And it's just been an amazing journey.
Yeah, no, it is. And that comes across, that sense of a journey, that sense of being truthful and honest and rooted in real life comes across, even though it's sort of around the superheroes, but the humanity comes through. Give us a little extra, give us a bit of a reading.
Yeah, well, I thought what I would do, as Paul was saying, the most important voices are the children, and who we've been speaking to. So in one of the chapters of the book, we just included some of the examples that children have come up with from the workshops of things, strategies they could develop to overcome some of the difficulties. So one boy said he'd like a megaphone mouth. So I'd love an invisible megaphone to appear over my mouth when I'm reading out loud, so it sounds nice and loud and clear. And then there was vision goggles. I always imagine I'm wearing vision goggles so I can't see the rest of the class when I'm reading out loud. Or balloon popping. This was a brilliant image one of the children came up with, which was when I'm trying to sound words out, I picture a clown popping balloons one by one, and each one containing a bit of the word. So as the balloons pop, the sounds merge together, which I thought was just a lovely image. And then we had someone wanted a kind of a glue stick they could screw off of their arms. They could stick the words to the page to stop them moving about. And, you know, there's hundreds. I mean, I could keep going, but I know that you're kind of don't have time for me to do that. But, you know, that's the real inspiration, isn't it? As Paul was saying, it's like often it's the children that have their own solutions. And it really, if we listen to them and try and work with them, you know, then we can overcome any difficulties that they might have.
And it's just listening to them, which is in itself empowering. And the book is full of this idea about empowering the young child with dyslexia, or the child with dyslexia, that it's okay. That not only is it okay, you've actually got all this other stuff to offer as well. So it is the book that I wished I'd been able to share with my daughter growing up, as we battled with pahonics.
I mean,
although she's got a sister called Phoebe, so
that's difficult to start with, isn't it?
It's one of those things I think so many people have fed back to us to say, I just wish I had this when I was at school, but I've now got it. And I got a lovely message from a parent one time on LinkedIn, and he said, what do I do with this book? Do I sit down and use it? I said, yeah, sit down. And he said, about a week later, he said, it's the first time I've had open conversations about it. I'm starting to understand. And he says, I'm doodling away at night. I'm drawing on bits of paper with him. And it was just this lovely dad and son relationship that had obviously broken down, because reading is so difficult. But if you doodle away and you get that, you build up a bit of confidence, you start to do that. And it was just lovely to hear, do you know what I mean, that you can make a difference. And then what do? You open up what Julie always says, this magical world of books. If you can, you mentioned at the start, it's not about not being able to read, it's about having the confidence. And if we can do that more, we enter into a world where children just go and say, I'm going to explore books now, I'm going to feel good about myself. And they go on a fantastic journey. And we just make, rather than blocking it down. So at 10 years of age, you go, I can't read. Well, you can, We just find ways of helping you. It might be you do a page, somebody does a chapter. Who cares? You'll get the book. It might take you a year, it might take them a week. Does it matter? No, you get the same end of the story.
Yeah.
But we embrace that, and we embrace that change. So Ian, that is lovely to hear, because it's so much. And it's one say, my mum said, I wish I had that in 1979. So I got there eventually.
There'd have been fewer tears.
Yeah, a few tears.
So you mentioned LinkedIn. So how can we, so we've done a deal with this, with the roving bookshop, so you can find information there, and all the Sue Atkins books that we're covering in this from her Sue Atkins Book Club will sort of be on there, and I think there's sort of these signings and things. So the link is going to be on the website. But you talk about LinkedIn? Are you on social media? Do you have your own website? How else can people?
We don't have a website. That's something that's on the to-do list. But Twitter is the best place really to get the kind of news for Mission Dyslexia. It's at Dyslexia Mission. So we've got all our kind of posts and things on there. Paul puts things out on his personal LinkedIn. We're on Instagram as well. I'm just getting the hang of Instagram though, so I think Twitter's the best place just now.
Oh, you'll be on TikTok next.
Oh, I know. My son can teach me all of that.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And the workshops and things, is that pandemic permitting? Is that something you're still doing?
Yeah, we still do workshops. We've done them mostly online this year. We've done a couple for libraries, like book clubs for libraries, and some for schools as well, and some parent sort of workshops as well. So yeah, available for talks and workshops.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
On behalf of parents everywhere trying to connect, and finding now that there's a way that they can connect. I'm sure teachers will benefit and the children will benefit as well. So thank you.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you guys. It really means a lot to us. Thank you so much for your time.
Keep fighting the good fight.
We always will.
too.
We always will.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.